Hello, history buffs. This is Captain Cataletto with another Remember to Remember history chat. Behind me is legendary Cedar Point in East Hampton, New York, located in the Northwest Woods. We are looking out over Northwest Harbor and across the Mashonack Reserve on Shelter Island. The square stone building is Cedar Point Lighthouse, built way back in 1839 in the whaling heyday, back when Sag Harbor was a busy whaling port. Beyond that, looking north would be Orient Point, and finally we get all the way over across to Connecticut. Now, Cedar Point is an incredible place. Not only is there a ton of history with loads of amazing stories, but it was really the first entryway for those first brave and hardy colonists who first settled in East Hampton. The Montauk Indians called Long Island Ponomook, meaning Sweetwater in Algonquin. Then the first European explorers like Henry Hudson, Verrazano, and Adrian Block back in the late 1500s sailed these waters and found that Northwest Harbor was one of the deepest and safest harbors in eastern Long Island. So this is where those first sailors anchored their ships and came ashore to trade with the local Indians and learn about this new world. Now, East Hampton town records first mention Northwest Harbor in what they say is they call it the Cartway to ye Northwest Woods. The heavily wooded area was northwest of East Hampton Village, hence its name. In 1653, a tidal mill was built over this way in Northwest Creek. The mill cleverly used the consistent power of moving tidal water to turn the big paddle wheel, which was used to grind grain and corn. As small settlements began in Southampton, East Hampton, and Gardiner's Island, trade quickly increased and Northwest Harbor became East Hampton's main port. Not only were colonists arriving from England, but goods from around the world came here. Goods like rum, sugarcane, tobacco, spices, all were landed on the beach here and then taken by horse-drawn carts to the various settlements. One old road they took was Merchant's Path, and it's still named that to this day. It's over near 114. The first known wharf was built here in the late 1600s by Captain Samuel Fishhooks Mulford, a famous early Bonnicker. He was a famous whaling captain, but also went to London to protest unfair taxes on whale oil. Legend has it that when he was in the British capital, Captain Mulford lined his pockets with fish hooks to thwart pickpockets. Hence the name Fishhook Mulford. Like any good Bonnicker, he didn't leave home without his supplies. Now, shore whaling was very important in those days. In fact, East Hampton was the first successful industry which brought wealth and stability to the young British colony. Shore whaling was basically spotting a whale from shore and then hunting them in small boats. These early whalers also used Northwest Harbor as the most convenient and safest place to bring in the carcasses of these whales to be processed. The whole whale would be used, the bones for fertilizer, but most importantly was the oil, the whale oil. And also, as part of an agreement to the local Indian tribes like the Montauks and Shinnecocks, they would always give the fin and the tail and the fins to the Native Americans, and they would in turn sacrifice them by roasting them to their god Manitou. Back in those days, what is now Sag Harbor Main Street over here was a busy Native American village with many wigwams and a palisaded wall for protection against raids from enemy tribes who paddled across Long Island Sound on giant canoes, 30, 50-man canoes. Sag Harbor was first settled by the Algonquin Indians who called their village Wegwanock, which legend has it comes from the words meaning land at the end of the hill. And there's a hill in Sag Harbor that goes down to the docks there. The English purchased the property from the Indians in 1707. Once the English moved into Sag Harbor, it wasn't long before the locals built the first long wharf in the same spot it is today. This allowed for deep-hold ships to unload and pick up supplies more easily than the old Northwest Harbor. Soon, Long Wharf replaced Northwest Harbor as the main port of call on eastern Long Island. Today, besides a few small cemeteries hidden and some old building foundations, it's impossible to recognize the once bustling port filled with wharves and whale houses and a harbor full of ships from around the world. Now, I've heard there's a lost monument that marks the site of this forgotten first port. So, join me and we'll see if we can find it. Okay, so here I am. I had to cut through the woods here because this is very old and it's kind of forgotten. I don't think anyone's been back here in a long time. There's no trail that gets you back here, but check it out. If you look, you're gonna see an old There's an old plaque here. And it says, Northwest Landing, East Hampton's first port. A warehouse was built here by Samuel Mulford in 1702 and a wharf by Abraham Schellinger in 1700. So this was made by the United States Bicentennial, 1976. This was put in here, and you can see it's been lost and forgotten, but it's an important part of our history of East Hampton. And hope you enjoyed this little video, and maybe you can get down here and see if you could find it someday. Maybe when in the winter when there's less ticks, because I did pull a few off me. And all right, Captain Cataletto signing off, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.